You see how Shinigami's in the background here? Shinigami's actually in this video for the commentary. And along with Shinigami is PT Nick Davis. So we got a dream team today. Nick, you've never seen Street Beefs, right?
Never.
Wow. Okay. This is Beam, and this is a Muay Thai match, right, Shinigami?
Yeah.
Okay. So Street Beefs started out in Virginia. It was basically a way for people to solve their issues. Sort of like mutual combat, right? But I don't think Virginia even has a mutual combat law, so it was kind of underground.
Yeah, I mean it's a legal gray area, you know.
Yeah.
But it definitely it started out because two guys showed up at his Scarface's house in the hood and were like, they were beefing over a drug deal, and they were like, "Can we just scrap in your yard so we don't shoot each other?"
Yeah, exactly. And then it just became now Street Beefs has multiple divisions. It's got multiple stars, like Shinigami. So it's just become a thing. It's become a big institution. So Muay Thai match, Chino's the one in black, and Beam is the one in red.
Yep.
Now, Nick, do you have many Muay Thai fighters that come to you for PT?
I say I have a few.
Okay.
So normally I won't have more than like 2 at a time or so. But I've had my share over the years for sure.
So that was a wild punch by Chino. Not the most aimed. Okay, that was 2 telegraph. That spin kick. So Beam is probably the one that has more training, right, Shinigami?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
And then I actually trained with him for this event. He was trying to get an MMA match, but they just didn't have one, so we ended up doing Muay Thai with Chino because he is a Muay Thai base for his stand-up.
I see.
And one of the first things I love looking at is, you know, in the arena, in the cage, who holds their ground more, who is moving to control the territory. And this is from largely a wrestling background for me too, versus who's the one that has to adapt more. And oftentimes they're more the rookie.
I see. That makes sense.
That's what I love about Street Beefs. It's such a mixed bag of experience, and they try to match you up as close as possible. But part of it is not just that you've trained; it's how much actual ring time do you have, and not just sparring in class.
Yeah.
So they'll match you up as close as they can, and even though this is only like his second full contact fight ever, I believe, you know, you can tell where the training is at between the two of them, who's got more class time and just more base technique.
Yeah, like Beam's landing with much more accuracy, and he's got much solid combos. Yeah.
Well, it's just even, you know, when you're making a move, how purposeful is it or not? Are you moving just to move and to stay on your feet, or are you actually doing something with it?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something in Capoeira class today that Shinigami took for the first time. By the way, thank you for trying our Capoeira class.
Thank you for inviting me.
Our mestre was trying to explain that too, like, don't just move for the sake of moving, right? That's what Batata was trying to say too. And translated differently was exactly what Nick just said. And, that was a great punch.
So perfect counter, way to extend in there.
Yeah. And, like, I definitely sometimes only move for the sake of moving. I'll admit it, you know. So that's something I'm working on too. I got to have more deliberate movements.
And it's always, you know, it's a difference between training and can you experiment with the move versus you're in a combat situation, you're sparring, and everything's got to be deliberate, either to make your opponent move to a place where they are more vulnerable or to hit them when you can.
Yeah. Chino's dropping his hands a lot. Anyways.
I'm guilty of the same thing, moving just to move sometimes, or sometimes not moving when I should. And that just happens when, you know, it's one thing when you're learning to do it, and it's one thing to teach, like, we should move after 2 seconds and fire as we move or set up something, because that's how we get all of our shots in, is from a transitional movement, whether it's, you know, striking. Even in jiu-jitsu, most of your submissions come from a transitional movement, not just sitting on top of your opponent.
Yeah. So,
you know, you learn real quick doing this where you're at and how well you maintain it as you get more and more tired as the rounds go on and you take more damage.
And even as I see Chino move here, I mean, certainly he's tired, he's fatigued, he's been hit a lot. But even earlier in the match, he was not moving through his feet very well, even though he was bouncing a lot. When he threw his punches...
Are you here, man? So, guys, that call was Alex. Alex just joined us, and now we got Nick, Alex, and Shinigami, and Jerry. So this was the end of the first round. Alex says Chino versus Beam. Chino's the one in black. Beam is in red. So that was the end of the first round. Second round. And one thing we were noticing is, you know, who's has ring control, who's stepping through their feet, right? That's what Nick was talking about.
Yeah, and even as much as stepping through the feet, when he's throwing the punch, how connected to the ground is he? Because as you're throwing your body forward through the punches, you've got to be grounded to counteract that force. Otherwise, you leave yourself too vulnerable.
Makes sense.
Is the guy in the red Muay Thai?
Yeah, this is a Muay Thai match, and the guy in red definitely has more training. Yeah. So you trained with Beam. Have you trained with Chino Shinigami?
No.
No. Okay, so just Beam.
No. Beam's from Lancaster too.
Oh, that's why.
He actually ended up at the lab because the one or two events before this, Oni fought and told him to come train with me since he lives in Lancaster. So he was like, yeah, you go hit up Shinigami. And so he messaged me on Facebook, and I was like, oh yeah, man, come to the lab.
Yeah. And I like right before that series of punches to him, where he came in, he had the shot to the shin, and he just never readjusted, so he took it full advantage.
Yeah. So this is round 3 now. Is this a 3-round match?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, most branches do 3 rounds in general. We're the only branch that does like 5-round title matches.
I see. Oof, nice.
For the People's Champ.
Yeah, I'm really impressed at Beam's angles. He's getting his head off center line a lot. He's taking advantage, especially his kick. The angle of his kick's really good. So, let's see. Oh, nice. He's done that a lot. Yeah, this is his 3rd or 4th time doing that.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And you could tell, I mean, even if we did that slow motion, he slightly moved his torso away from the direction of the kick, barely, and then moved back into it, so absorbed the force really well, so it didn't have a huge impact, and then grabbed in.
Makes sense.
He keeps landing a lot of good straight rights, too. I mean, he definitely dazed Chino 3 or 4 times over the course of this. It's
Chino's chin, man. Look at
way
that.
Out.
Woof.
Yeah, way out. Hands down, too.
Yeah. It's like what we say, you get hit enough times, you go back to instincts, man. And a lot of people's instincts is because they want to reach farther.
So and then when he got the foot, he didn't even know what to do with it for the next step.
Yeah.
And that's just the cool thing about Street Beefs, too, is even if someone's a little less experienced, you get to see how tough you really are when you do this.
Yeah.
Because you realize real quick whether or not you're fighting someone with more experience than you, and you have to, decide if you're going to stay in there and try to slug it out and make it to the end or not.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah. This is definitely, I can see. So when you first started training with Beam Shinigami, was he this good, or has he made a lot of progress since you first started training with him?
He was good, but he made quite a bit of progress. We were mostly training MMA, so a lot of his progress was more from the jiu-jitsu side. He's got some jiu-jitsu experience. He was training at Gracie Baja West Lancaster, but we definitely improved a lot of his angles just standing up with some of the MMA stuff we were doing too.
I see. Yeah, over there what we just saw, wild punch that Chino threw, and Beam just got his head off center line and launched a kick at the body. That was great. And again, just lots of these wild punches by Chino.
And the thing about that too is, and I'm not really like a Muay Thai guy, I've done a little bit here and there, but the problem with all those big wild punches is he's not setting up any kind of elbows or clinch with them. I mean, you kind of sort of can with a slightly wide punch, which is sometimes a thing they do. But yeah, he's just swinging for the fences trying to get that knockout.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just tough on a guy like Beam because he's very covered up.
Well, that's where the efficiency comes in the body too. From the PT or the movement perspective, we work in these patterns of the muscles and lines and fascia that work together. And so swinging for these wild punches, while you might be able to generate a ton of power, they're usually not as efficient, especially the way he's swinging, not being grounded as much.
Oh, yeah, with Chinos.
Yeah, it makes you tired. It leaves you open.
Yeah.
It's just trying to get that one lucky punch.
Yeah. I will say, though, on sand, it is harder. I used to train a little boxing on sand, I remember. So it's harder to generate that power versus solid ground. But, if you want to see how someone's doing it correctly, look at Beam.
Yeah, the sand is definitely another level of factor, too, because granted, that sand there is actually really easy to move around in. But, I went and trained with some guys at the beach in the sand because they were training for fighting in the sand at the other sandbox cage. And, sand will take it out of you just moving in sand if it's deep enough.
Yeah. You're tired after one round.
Yeah.
Half a round.
Yeah, I tried to move around like I'm used to doing, and karate's got pretty good footwork, but when you're in sand, especially deep sand, you move a little bit and you just sink in.
Yeah.
You move a little more, you sink in. Every time you move, so something that's reliant on a lot of footwork is going to get you worn out faster. So you got to really alter what you do and be more efficient with your striking instead of your footwork.
Yeah. Ooh, there it is. I saw earlier, before Chino got his leg caught, his foot almost came together. He's definitely a little lost with just his footwork in general.
Yeah, I think this was his first fight.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So, Beam. Oh, looking very different, too.
Very different.
Wow. Oh, he had the signature T.
Oh, I guess it was a kickboxing match. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is kind of more of a, I just came to test myself off the couch Beam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he hadn't been training for a while, but he wanted to go do a little something.
This opponent definitely has a reach advantage over him.
Yeah, No Love's done quite a few fights, too.
Oh.
Sometimes it's just how it rolls, right?
Yeah.
You show up and someone doesn't have an opponent, so you either step up or you came for nothing. So a lot of people will go, I mean, some of these guys drive 8 hours or fly in.
Wow.
So, you know, it's you even driving from Lancaster out there though, that's like a 3-4 hour drive.
Wow.
You go out there, you're not going to sit there and not fight whatever they offer you, you know.
Exactly. The other thing, following up on Nick's point, look at how No Love kind of deals with Beam's pressure, right? Compare this to how Chino did it. So No Love's definitely much more effective at dealing with Beam's pressure.
Able to back away from it, but then also have the hands ready to counter too.
Yeah, exactly. And lots of circling. And the punches definitely come from a variety of angles compared to Chino. So, oof, that was a good combo. Oof. So it was ruled it, or just given a standing count?
I think
Maybe TKO.
I think that body shot kind of did him in, and
TKO.
he kind of was done.
I see, yeah.
And that's all it takes too, is one good shot to the body, especially like to the liver. The liver, the solar plexus will really take it out of you.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Yeah, very, very different type of opponent.
On different condition for Beam too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. There's no sand too, right? Or is
Oh,
this sand?
it's the sand. It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the
Overblown.
same. It's the same cage. They
Yeah,
just
I see.
didn't put the didn't have the covering over it yet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little bit overblown lighting wise. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, it's because the covering really changed the lighting
Totally.
and definitely made it a lot easier to deal with being out there all day in that heat.
Yeah. But what I like about seeing this one is that you see, like, already you know Beam has a lot of potential just seeing this, right? He's not as slick as the other one, but man, he already has a lot of potential in this, so.
Yeah, and for No Love here compared to Chino in the last video, when Beam is throwing out those little jabs or little punches here and tiny little shin kicks and everything, No Love handles it well. He absorbs it. He's like, you know what, this is just a test. Don't make a big deal of it. Don't overreact. Versus it got Chino off his feet a little bit and led to some counters to get him in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. That's the kick that did it. Wow. Looked like it was the liver hunch.
Yeah, the liver shot. So I was actually sparring with one of my purple belt students in my karate dojo. He's like 16. He's about your size, but more built.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a lot of tournament and competition experience, but he still ran into a kick right in the liver. I wasn't even trying. I actually intentionally did it slow so he would dodge it or try to grab it, and he just ran right into my heel with his liver.
Wow.
I was like, bro, my bad.
Did he go down or?
Yeah, he went down.
Wow. Woo.
Just kills the fight out of you.
Yeah, you tap the liver even like slightly it'll just, your whole body just.
And what is the mechanism behind that, Nick?
I mean, on a very, very simplistic standpoint, your internal organs are extremely important. They don't want to get hit. They don't want to get messed with. And that's your body's protection for survival. It's really head number 1, internal gut organs number 2. Then what I get curious about too is if fighters are trying to change, maybe weight isn't as big of a deal for these. You guys would know better than me, but if they're trying to drop weight or change their hydration stats really quickly too, their liver and kidneys and other organs go through a heck of a process just to get ready for that, and it puts the body through a ton of stress. I've had people that have, dropped 15 pounds of water weight in almost dangerous thresholds to get ready for a fight to rehydrate again. I mean, they get a heartbeat of 170 just at rest sitting there because of how dehydrated they are. And so, I mean, really, your organs never like a big check to them, but especially when they're in that more delicate state, sends your body into protection mode right away.
Makes sense.
But why is like the liver the biggest switch organ for that? Like, people get hit in the spleen and stuff, and you don't see them drop like that.
Yeah, so the spleen is, and my short answer is I can't guarantee exactly why. As far as the function of the spleen, that's much more immune system, so it's going to be slower reacting. When you're in a fight or flight response, your immune system really isn't working that hard anyway. That's why we see people under chronic stress, they get sick a lot easier. So really your spleen has a pretty low demand in the moment. Same thing for your stomach, right? You're not digesting when you're there fighting. For your liver, that's all your enzyme, that's everything going on. That's really the main regulator of everything that happens. Your kidneys are a filtration system, so they're constantly working. But your liver is really what has a lot of enzyme function, has everything going in the body, and is working at all times, plus all these different lobes in the anatomy. It's very exposed in people. So you get it right behind the ribs on the right side. It knocks wind out of you big time. Yeah,
makes sense. So it's a mixture of, it's very important in a fight circumstance, and on top of that, it's big, and there's parts of it exposed.
Totally,
so
absolutely.
That makes sense.
And it's like a filter, right? Which you are using when you're...
Absolutely. So the kidney is the main filter device for long term that happens, as far as like water, nutrients, protein, and everything, for what actually gets filtered out for waste. But for what gets... So the kidney is a filter for what leaves the body. Within the body, the liver is one of the main filters, and it's one of the main autoregulators for all your internal functions. And that's like when you take medication or any kind of hormone or drug that goes through you, it gets processed through the liver as well.
Wow, makes sense.
So in many ways where other organs turn off when you're fighting, the liver does not.
Yeah. So that makes, that's why I was wondering, like, that explains why the liver and like not the spleen, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you get hit in the liver, your body's like, uh-oh, I need this. Okay, stop.
Or like, I need to get out of this situation, or I'm relying on the liver for this. I need to change something so my liver can keep doing its thing.
Makes sense.
And luckily, people have about 8 lobes of the liver, and the liver actually has potential to grow back. So like, I could donate in theory 1 lobe of my liver, and I'd be fine.
Wow.
But it has a lot of high demand on it. Plus, you never know what someone's background is. Have they had other drugs, a lot of other alcohol poisoning, or other issues that make it more susceptible too?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know, for example, if you have a history of alcoholism, some of your liver gets replaced by connective tissue, right?
Totally.
So, like, it's not growing back the way it should, hypothetically, if you're healthier and not had a history of alcoholism.
Potentially. I mean, you get fatty liver disease that happens all the time in people. This makes you more susceptible. So it's like for someone who's smoking, their lungs, a certain percent of your lung tissue doesn't work. The rest still works, but that part doesn't. So it just makes it a higher threshold for you to get messed up with.
I see.
Same thing for the liver. If you're having a lot of alcoholism where it's at such a huge level where it's too fast for the liver to replenish, and it's over trying to process that over time, let's say you have 80% of your liver that works, well, you're still only at 80% capacity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So this was a team fight commentary breakdowns commentary. This was cool. This was Shinigami, Nick, Alex, and Jerry. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.